You up to date. Let's bring in our political panel right now for a closer look at all of this. President and executive editor of the Daily Signal, Robert Bluey, and former Obama staffer and Democratic strategist, Dominique James. To both of you, good morning this morning. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
Well, aside from foreign policy, I want to hear what each of you expect the president and the president-elect to discuss in this meeting that's set for the Oval Office on Wednesday. And do you think the press will be allowed to attend? Dominique, I'll start with you first.
Well, again, first of all, good morning, and thank you to all of our veterans for their service. This is an incredibly important meeting, and as someone who worked on the transition in 2020, I am first encouraged that Donald Trump took the meeting. I think domestic policy is incredibly important. Voters elected Donald Trump first and foremost to focus on the economy. So I do hope that President Biden will talk about the state of the economy, almost the two different economies that we have. The stock market's doing well. Prices are still way too high for so many Americans. And so in that meeting, I hope that President Biden will talk about the impact of the tariffs and some of the policies that Donald Trump wants to institute in his administration.
Robert, to you.
Yes, I mean, I agree that the economy needs to be first and foremost the number one issue that Donald Trump focuses on. That's, I think, what propelled him to the White House. And that's why so many different groups of Americans who previously supported Joe Biden decided to switch to give Donald Trump an opportunity to turn things around. But I do think foreign policy and immigration will be issues as well. Obviously, these two picks that he's made, Elise Stefanik and Tom Homan, signal that Donald Trump is going to focus on those issues. First of all, ending the wars overseas, and then making sure that we clean up the immigration system and re-secure the border here in the United States.
Robert, Trump made these big announcements over the weekend, his choices of Stefanik and Homan to serve as UN ambassador and border czar, respectively, and officially saying two former members will not be returning, Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo. Your thoughts on these announcements?
Yes, well, first with the latter, I think that you saw a move with his supporters that there was a break from those policies that he pursued in the first term, particularly with what you would describe as neocons, people who are maybe more aggressive with the foreign policy. I think a second Trump term is going to be focused on peace. You saw that toward the end of his first term with the Abraham Accords, and that's the direction that he's going to go. I think Elise Stefanik is a signal to the world that he wants to get things cleaned up in Europe with the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and then also focus on the Middle East. As for Tom Homan, not necessarily a surprise. Tom Homan's a longtime ally. He's somebody who was actually appointed by President Obama, has had stints in the Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So he's an inspiring choice for those of us who want to see the border cleaned up.
You know, I want to turn to Congress here. The Senate, of course, we heard over the weekend, they're set to vote on new leadership. That's going to happen Wednesday. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell pushed for this quick vote. The president-elect over the weekend cautioning about voting in leadership that could slow down his agenda. The top three contenders for this role of our majority leader, I should say, that's Senators John Thune of South Dakota. We have former Florida Governor Rick Scott and John Cornyn of Texas. I want to get to both of you on this in terms of your response to this move by Mitch McConnell. Robert, do you believe do you believe, I should say, will be the best to lead the Senate into the next term? We saw especially Rick Scott over the weekend making a lot of interviews, making a lot of comments about it.
Sure. Well, Rick Scott is clearly the one who's most aligned with Donald Trump and pushing for the reforms that I think are desperately needed in the Senate. I mean, frankly, we have an institution that needs to give power back to the individual senators and really preserve the minority's rights. And I think Democrats probably want that more than ever now that they will be in the minority. The other two, I think, will carry on a lot of the policies that Mitch McConnell has. And that's where you see this break among Donald Trump supporters and why there's so much enthusiasm for Rick Scott as we move toward this Wednesday vote. It will be by secret ballot, so it's really anyone's guess who will emerge on top.
Dominique, to you.
I agree. I think Rick Scott is the clear favorite, not only within Congress and the institution, but we saw over this past weekend Elon Musk coming out in support of Rick Scott. We also saw Vivek Ramaswamy coming out in support of Rick Scott. We know that Donald Trump is very non-traditional in how he likes to govern. And so with not only the internal forces, but external forces and voices, if you will, I do expect Rick Scott to become the new Senate Majority Leader.
Dominique, Republicans are poised to gain control of the House as well, giving them the trifecta of the White House and both houses of Congress. So do Democrats, what do they need to do to sort of do some soul searching in the wake of these election results? And if so, what do they need to truly re-examine heading into 2026? Because it comes quickly.
That is a very loaded question. Democrats have to do first and so many things. However, three things immediately come to mind. Donald Trump, I first want to say he's had effectively been running for office for 10 years. So I would argue that he has a head start on any candidate that would have ran this cycle, Kamala Harris included. They ran a strong race and did extraordinary things in only 107 days. With that said, the Democratic Party in general needs systemic reform, first and foremost, from the consultant team all the way down to how they actually structure and run their campaigns. Number two is media. Donald Trump was outspent, but he focused on not only media, but the right media, including earned media. He was on podcasts. The Harris team had her on traditional media platforms. So it's so important that Democrats who actually do have a record for defending the working class get their message out, but get it out in the right places so that the right people hear it. And last but not least, I already kind of said it, is messaging. Democrats are the ones who are advocating for paid parental leave, child tax credits, earned income tax credits, policies that actually help everyday Americans. There's just a big disconnect. And I think that is how they talk about their reforms and where they get their message out.
Robert, to you on this one before we have to let you guys go.
Well, I agree with that analysis. I would add a fourth point, and that is moving away from some of those divisive issues that I think broad swaths of the American people don't support. That includes making sure that biological men aren't playing in girls' sports. That means that we secure the border and we stop these policies that are allowing millions of illegal aliens into the country. You can go down the list, and the Democrats were really on the wrong side of these issues that in some cases were 90-10, 80-20 issues in favor of the position that Donald Trump took.
Robert Bluey, yeah, great stuff there. Dominique, going back to your point, this was definitely the election for optics in the messaging out there from both sides, including Donald Trump. Robert Bluey and Dominique James, we appreciate you both joining us here on this Monday. Thank you.
Thank you both.